Welcome to the Collecting Keys Real Estate Investing Podcast with your host, Mike DeHaan and Dan Austin. From wins, losses, horror stories, and tactics for optimizing your business, Mike and Dan take a real, uncensored deep dive into the ins and outs of running a full-time real estate investment and wholesaling business.
What's going on, guys? Welcome to episode 32 of the Collecting Keys podcast.
A lot of energy in that one. Came out hard.
I'm happy to be back. We've been off for a little bit. Thanks for bearing with us last week as we gave you the audio from one of our YouTube videos. We're going to be doing some of these YouTube videos on, I guess, the Collecting Keys Mike and Dan show over the next little bit. We're going to dive more into topics regarding, the economy, business, just like other real estate people in general. We have another one coming out here pretty soon where we talk about a recent Bigger Pockets episode where they discuss wholesalers and real estate wholesaling as a whole in a way that Dan and I don't necessarily agree with. So we'll have things like that. We'll go into a lot of visuals in those, but they do make it audio as well. So if you enjoyed that, go and check out our YouTube channel over there. I think if you looked up the Collecting Keys YouTube channel, there should be some videos on there. And then there should be the Collecting Keys Mike and Dan show YouTube channel as well. So go check those.
Is that the name of the channel?
Yeah.
Collecting Keys Mike and Dan show?
I believe so, yeah. I mean, I think it's
cool.
Mike and Dan show, Collecting Keys Network. I'll put the exact link in the description.
Okay.
But yeah, I've been off for a couple weeks. I was at a GoBundance event in Miami last week through the weekend, and GoBundance, the millionaire mastermind that Dan and I both joined last year. It's one of those things that kind of got on our radars from Bigger Pocket and some of these other, I guess, like entrepreneurial podcasts that people talk about. And essentially what it is, it's a mastermind for people with a certain net worth requirement, and generally have businesses going on, generally have high incomes of some sort, and they want to get more out of life as well, rather than just being workaholics. And I always, when we sign up for those things, I mean, it's kind of an expensive cost, but I know you haven't even been to an event, Dan, but tell you what, after every time I go to one, I always come back with like church camp syndrome, like ready to run.
I know. It's probably good I haven't, because both of us going at the same time, our employees would be in trouble. But it is an interesting group because I haven't, and I think the events are probably, I don't know, I'm just going to throw weighting out there, like 70% of the value. Then 30% is just being in the group and having your GoPod, which is a smaller group of people that you meet with on a more, a different cadence, probably weekly or biweekly, depending on your group. And you could have multiple GoPods. But, a lot of people in GoBundance have talked about it on various, media platforms or whatever. And it really is like what they say it is. It's pretty life-changing, changing your perspective, finally getting around other people that have big visions that aren't holding you back, that are supporting you, and also not thinking about just money, but everybody in the group knows money makes things a lot easier, and they're motivated by that metric in many senses, but that's not the only metric. And so it definitely keeps you well balanced in that approach as well. So it's not a GoBundance pitch, by the way, but it's definitely one of those things. You can join a group and all these masterminds, do all these things. It truly has been pretty mind altering for me.
Yeah. And I mean, especially as you start to get into business and you start to have some success, I'm sure you found this. A lot of people find this is all of a sudden your social group, normally within your local environment, you just don't connect with them quite as well when they're all, working salary jobs and they're bitching about stuff that you can't really relate to anymore when you're in the entrepreneurial struggle train, which is completely different for better or for worse, and then there'll things come up like, you're hanging out with your friends, you got to go take a sales call because that's what you got to do to operate your business. And they give you crap for it. And, they just don't understand. But then when you're in this environment where you're with a bunch of other people that do understand it, it's definitely super mind altering. And the thing that I like about GoBundance as well is there's a wide range of people, but we all kind of are on the same wavelength just with life. And there's like wide range being between, age, demographic, the businesses that they're in, but everyone there, because it's sort of set up with this expectation of like, hey, we kind of want more out of life. Like we want to network, we want to do all these things. It's very easy to get along with pretty much everybody, and
a lot of common interests there.
Tons of common interests. And I mean, the range of people, lots of real estate guys, as you'd imagine. I mean, it's one of the easiest ways to reach a 7-figure net worth. That's why we started our instant investor program, was to sort of teach that, because that's how we were able to achieve it. Especially when you're buying discounted real estate, it happens quickly, which is what a lot of guys there are doing. But then there's everyone from like people that are in tech. There's people that have medical practices. In Miami, we have there's a couple of professional athletes that were there that are also trying to now establish business stuff as their professional athletic careers are coming to an end. There's like an NBA player, an NFL player, both of which are have played professionally for 15 to 20 years, and they're like, yeah, now I'm just trying to figure out what I'm gonna do with the rest of my life, and I want to do it in a way that's outside of the typical realm of what a lot of those guys do, which is go and become broke. So,
Right.
like, just super, super cool, the wide range, and, the networking that comes from that is so invaluable. I mean, we met like our podcast producers there that have been helping us put together these episodes. The owner of that company is part of the group. We met the guy that we worked with to start building out the instant investor program with that group. We have several people we've done partnerships on deals in that group. I mean, even though the price tag was 10 grand a year, I mean, we've made that money back significantly.
Oh man, within like the first months, like it is amazing how fast, like, every time you got to make your tuition payment, you're like, oh God, that's a lot of money. But then you look at what you've made because of it. Not just in financial gains, but other gains as well. Mindset, for me, a huge mindset gains and being around other people with the mindset I want to have.
Yeah.
And I heard Jamie Gruber, who runs the Tribe of Millionaires podcast for GoBundance, he did his latest episode from Miami, I think it was, and he said nobody has time to be in GoBundance, so you have to make time to be in GoBundance.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, it's so true though. Like, anything you do, it doesn't have to be GoBundance. It could be our instant investor program. It could be anything. But if you truly allocate the time and the effort to that, and when you have to pay money for it, you're more incentivized to, because you don't want to like have that thing be a waste of your money.
Yeah.
But when you do allocate that to it, you can reap the benefits. The more you pour into it, the more you get out of it.
Yeah. I mean, just like everything else. I met Jamie too. He's a good dude. I'm actually going to be on that podcast here coming out in June or July. I recorded one while I was in Miami. It was pretty cool. So I recorded that one, and literally right across from us, you can probably hear his voice in the background of ours. Jay Scott from Bigger Pockets was recording.
He's in GoBundance too, right?
I actually don't know if Jay Scott's in GoBundance, but he was there to record episodes for his new podcast. So he was recording with a lot of guys. He didn't pick me, unfortunately, to be recorded, but I got with him a little bit. He's a super nice guy. So the guys can listen out for that too as it comes. I think that was a good episode where we have some announcements on stuff that we're working on that are going to be revealed there, I guess, if we don't reveal them for
big announcements. Yeah.
So anyway,
you'll have to bring it over and play it on our pod. Maybe we could do like a midweek episode, drop that episode on the Collecting Keys Network. And that'd be cool.
Yeah. So anyway, not a GoBundance plug, but we've had great experiences so far. And if you guys do go and inquire about it, tell them we sent you, because we'll get a kickback when you sign up.
Oh yeah. Gotta get that referral fee.
Yeah, right.
It's really not a very large referral fee. So
it's significant. It's like what, $500 or $750 or something. It's not nothing.
Right, but I mean, that's not the incentive to get people into the group. You still want badass people in the group, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, they still interview you, and you have to qualify for it. So
that's true. Good point. Anyhow, what's your biggest takeaways? Like, what you brought it up for a reason? Like, what did you think about it?
Yeah, I mean, my biggest takeaways are always, I always have a level of inspiration coming back after being around a bunch of like-minded folks. And then the speakers that they had in Miami, I really enjoyed. So like the first night, they had this guy, it's like, what's his name? Ryan Serhant. He's a host of a show called $1 Million Listing. So he sells super high luxury real estate. And he's like sells like $100 million houses on the East Coast, which is just insane. And he had a whole thing about branding, which I thought was really interesting, and how he got into selling these extremely exclusive houses wasn't by any form of like marketing or anything like that, but he had his brokerage that was just called Serhant, and he's like, there's all these people that want luxury like treatment, right? Because they're extremely high net worth individuals. So they made Serhant Signature, and that was their brand. And they literally just added it as like a logo on their website. And within a couple of weeks, people were calling them being like, oh, I heard that you work exclusively with high net worth individuals? And he's like, well, yes, we do. He's like, had no,
It's all about marketing.
nothing was
All about
different,
marketing.
right? It's all branding. It's all
Mm-hmm.
personal brand. So he had
Mm-hmm.
that. And then that was super interesting just to hear him talk about, that sort of side of it, and how, your personal brand and your business brand and how valuable those are to growing literally anything. And then the second day I really enjoyed. So we had Jeff Hopkins, was the CEO of Priceline when they went public back in the early 2000s. And he's since taken like 5 or 6 different businesses public. He's worth like $10 billion or something crazy. And, he just came to this talk and just talked about hiring and building teams. And it's one of those things that you finish it up and it makes you think, because, people say that you always have the same amount of time in the day as everyone else, which, based off your net worth, obviously, if you have billions of dollars, I hate to say it, but you do have more time than everyone else because you can just outsource literally everything. Versus like, the mother of 2 who's single and has to take a bus to and from work. She does have less time than everyone else. Let's be honest.
Right.
Which makes it challenging. Yeah. But he was also someone that was so motivated and organized that he told a story that he just like threw this into a casual conversation in the speech. He's like, yeah, so after I took my 3rd company public, I decided to take about 18 months off and got into music. And I happened to win a Grammy that year. And that's when I was like, what? You just decided to like get into music and go win a Grammy? How the hell does that even happen?
Yeah.
Doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. That would not be me.
No, right?
I'm not winning a Grammy.
He's just that kind of person. And, just listening to him talking about scaling and organizing and how to manage staff and teams and how key all that is was super interesting. And he talked about his most successful moment where he realized he had reached sort of like peak with his business was when he was in the office and he had nothing to do. But not only did he have nothing to do, but he's a workaholic. So he was walking around to all of his team leaders trying to find something to do. And they all kept telling him to leave because he was in the way. And like every single one of them just said, why don't you go play golf?
That's
awesome. Why
awesome.
don't you go play golf or something? And he was all pissed off because everyone that worked for him in his business just wanted him to leave and go play golf so they could do their job and they could grow the vision that they had all bought into. And he's like, at the time he was really upset about it. But in hindsight, he's like, that's awesome. To have that sort of culture and that sort of team built is really something remarkable. So
that is remarkable.
And how much of that is good for his TED talk or whatever, I don't know. But either way, it was still a very interesting speech. And when you're around like high level people like that who are professional grade speakers, it's hard not to get somewhat inspired.
Well, and I think one key point here too is the audience in this environment, and what you take away from those, because it's easy to go and listen to that and walk away all pumped up, but like the action you take after that, I think is super important. And one thing I was living vicariously through the GoBundance Facebook group during this, and one of the Go Bros posted some of his slides that he created for himself as like takeaways. Yeah. And I thought they were super valuable. And this kind of speaks to one of them is like, how do you prepare for this type of event? But in general, I looked at it as like, how do you prepare for kind of anything you're going to do? Mm-hmm. And first is like looking at what are the problems you're trying to solve? Like really, truly like categorize those. And then when you're in that meeting or you're in that event or whatever, being inquisitive and inquiring and truly listening and seeking out solutions to your problems. And then immediately afterwards is actually taking your action steps. And what are those action steps for those problems you were going to solve? Yeah. I think that's just super valuable, and being intentional in that. That's how you go from 0 to 100 way faster than the average person. It's really being intentional about those action steps.
Yeah. And you haven't been to an event yet, but they actually make you do that at these events. So it's funny, while the speaker's still there, the CEO of GoBundance hops up on the stage and says, as everyone go around, not everyone, but like takes a bunch of people in the crowd and say, what'd you get out of that? What'd you get out of that? What'd you get out of that? And then, after that sort of wraps up, he says, all right, find someone that you haven't talked to yet and go and say what you got out of that talk and what your action steps are to put into action what you got from it. So it forces you to be immediately intentional. And even if, you don't do that like right away, it still plants that seed in the back of your head that you start processing it on a subconscious level. And it was interesting on the flight home, from Miami is a pretty decent haul. I was like planning to like, I don't know, watch a movie or, take some notes or whatever. And I found out that I just sat there and just thought for like the entire like 5 hour plane ride, and just
Yeah.
sort of like schemed and just sort of planned out some changes and things.
Airplanes are good for that,
They are. I
honestly.
mean, you got nothing else.
Like if you can just like close your laptop or maybe not pay for Wi-Fi or whatever, and you got a long East Coast to West Coast flight, what else are you going to do?
Yeah. And I spend a lot of time consuming and just sort of processing everything. And, that like it creates that subconscious change, which can really lead to a lot of proactive action once it's sort of planted that seed in your brain. But
yeah. And one thing, like, I guess one more point maybe before we transition, from the same slideshow that I was looking at was, if you can imagine a vision of like a narrow spotlight coming down just above you, like that's your reality. But then when you put yourself in with another group of people that are like-minded, you always say like-minded, or maybe they're not like-minded, and you're trying to push yourself into that new reality, that spotlight widens across that group. And so it's beyond just you, and your new reality is like what is possible, as opposed to what you're used to seeing every day in your life and how you move forward. And it's really easy to get zoned in that, especially for us. Like, we're a remote business. We don't have a big office space where we're, constantly interacting with different people in our office. Like, you could easily see yourself kind of just like, this is my business. This is my little goal. And then you can't really get much farther. You don't see what's possible, but then you step into this new group of people that are going to push you. And then all of a sudden your spotlight widens, and now you have this huge, what is possible. And it's almost too much, because you're like, what do I do next? Right. But it's just, then you're surrounding yourself by these people that can help you see what is possible. So I think that's really cool.
Yeah. And your network is your net worth. One of those things that sounds super cheesy until you kind of find people that's a true statement.
It sounds cheesy until you join a network and your net worth actually grows.
Yeah, right. And then all of a sudden you're like,
honestly,
the opportunities that come from knowing these people are next level. And well, also too, there's one last thing on that. Your network is your net worth if you are also a contributor to that network.
Great
That's
point.
something. I mean, even at GoBundance, there's obviously the people there that are there to consume and not contribute, and that exists across every community, right? I mean, not necessarily that's a bad thing, but don't be upset if you don't get as much out of it if you're not also a contributor,
right?
And just like that can be in any sort of social group, whether you're, like going to church, you're in your neighborhood, you're, I don't know, at your workplace. If you're only the consumer in that network versus a contributor, it's going to be very, very different.
Right.
So it's important to be proactive. But I would say on the most part, though, for GoBundance guys, everyone kind of already knows that. So most of them are contributors. So generally, it's extremely high value. But anyway, cool. So we're going to do a hard left-hand turn here. So one of the biggest questions that comes up a lot when we are talking to new investors and people in our instant investor program as well. In fact, I think we had some questions about this recently amongst them. You worked with one of the guys maybe on to go over some basic details. Is how exactly to estimate renovation costs on a property. And what a lot of people seem to want to do is they're like, I need to go and walk through it with a contractor. I need to get these quotes, all sort of stuff. But let's be honest, if you were dealing with an irrational off-market seller, not all off-market sellers are irrational, but ones that are a little bit loopy, you're not going to be able to go back there a bunch of times with like your flooring guy, your kitchen guy, with all this stuff to start plotting out your renovations. So how can you do that without having that availability of time? And we have a couple different ways that we're going to talk about. And we also have a free tool that we have available for you. So after the break here, we'll dive right into that. The Instant Investor Program is our 12-week group coaching program, which includes a self-driven course and access to our private investor community. We will take you through the full process of how we find our leads, how we market, how we do our sales and follow-up, and how we determine the best strategy for every opportunity that comes our way. On top of that, you will also join a community of other like-minded investors nationwide that are all marching towards the same goals, and you will have direct access to Dan and myself so you can continue learning and growing with us as we continue to adapt and grow our business. So whether you're a new investor or already established, our systems can help take you to the next level. So if you think you might be a good fit, go to theinstantinvestorprogram.com and schedule a call, and we can have you talking to motivated leads in as little as 2 weeks. All right. Welcome back. Dan, when we go and look at building a budget and figuring out the cost to renovate a property, I know that's kind of your jam. I help with the acquisition side and figuring out ARVs and all that sort of stuff. But I mean, you're the renovation guy. I mean, this is kind of the joke we had the other day where you were saying is like, man, you'd love to do some syndications to get some passive money. And I was like, I basically already get that because you do all the work.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Investing in syndications where it's easier. Yeah. I gotcha. Yeah. So, I think it all starts with where all the questions stem from, or where you start. People are kind of unsure how to do this. Generally speaking, you're going to have a walkthrough of a property at some level, whether it's you physically walking or someone in your team physically walking a property in your local market, or you're paying somebody to go take photos of the property so that you can confirm. Mm-hmm. So you've generally negotiated or been in a position where a seller is ready to sell as well, as long as your offer is in that right range. So a lot of times in our local market, what we do, well, this is how we do it, is we will, generally speaking, get that appointment to walk through. And from that appointment, that's where we're going to build our renovation package, because we already know what the ARV can be because we've looked at comps in that area for that size of property. Now we just need to know what are the exact renovation costs, or a conservative approach of renovation costs for that property. And that's why you're trying to walk through it or get photos of the property so you can see what needs to be updated. And that's what, calculator we use and all of our ACT managers use and all of our people in our instant investor program have access to, is essentially just high level numbers for a kitchen replacement, for flooring replacement, for bathroom upgrades, those sorts of things. And those are based on our personal data in our markets that generally are pretty good across a lot of different markets, but they're not exact for each market. Mm-hmm. And they're a little bit more of a conservative approach too. So when we're doing that walkthrough and we're going to build a rehab budget, we're not itemizing every little detail on a bathroom upgrade, but we generally know it's going to be in this price range. And you do want to go a little bit conservative because you might uncover some things as you get into a renovation. And so it is nice in that initial offer, that initial negotiation, to have a little bit of room as you're working with that seller. But generally speaking, like, we don't even send, if we're going to wholesale a deal, we don't send out rehab budgets. We know what our rehab budget is when we're negotiating it. But every buyer is going to have a slightly different model of rehab, and they're going to have a different level of rehab than what you need to be selling, right? Yeah. Some people might be solopreneurs where they're buying the deal and flipping it themselves. They might have like a full-time flipping business where their crews are really good. They might be trying to do an Airbnb type rehab on it, where somebody else that's going to buy it from you might just be straight up trying to burr it or flip it. Yeah. So there's no point in getting super detailed at that point.
Yeah, well, and I think that brings up a super valid point as well of, when we go to dispo stuff, try to wholesale things, that's also why we don't share a renovation budget, because that's going to vary so much. So we try to get our contracts under at a price where, with our conservative numbers, it makes sense. And I mean, best case scenario, you find that mom and pop flippers can be doing it themselves. You can sell it to them for that much more because their renovation cost is 25% less than yours. So,
right.
So when you're going through all that stuff, though, I mean, you said like we know the general cost off of our packages. Like when you say you're more conservative, how do you take into account like expected damages? Because there will be stuff that comes up. I mean, how often do we get into a bathroom and the subfloor is all rotted out because the caulking had been ripped out around the bathtub and water had been leaking underneath there for the last like 5 years,
right?
All the time. Right. Just stuff like that.
Yeah.
Never ending.
Yeah. So I guess let's step back and how are we going to build this budget with that calculator? So what's going to happen? Our acquisition manager.
And the calculator you're talking about, you can get at collectingkeyspodcast.com/calculator, which is literally the one that we use and the one that we give to our group. But
yeah, it's that exact same calculator. And what we're going to do, acquisition manager is going to go there, get photos, or whoever's getting photos for us. And I'm just going to click through the photos, and I can personally build a pretty tight budget from photos. But for the acquisition standpoint, actually our acquisition manager does this. I don't do this on all of our deals unless we're actually taking them down, but go through, okay, the comp says that the bathroom needs to be upgraded. The comp says we need new cabinets. Okay, well, kitchen standard upgrade, say it's $7,500. Say a bathroom, full gut bathroom, subfloor's a little rotted, all that stuff, $5,000. Exterior paint, we got a fixed number in there, right? And so whatever the comps are driving us to do are the things we're going to upgrade in that house. And that's how we're going to get that budget. And that's how we're going to start our range offer and our negotiation with the seller based on that budget. Say the budget for upgrades is like $35,000. And it's really based on that acquisition manager's walkthrough and also just looking at those photos, because you miss stuff when you're walking through, but your photo grabbed it. So you're going to look at certain things. And that's that first high level budget where you start negotiating with the seller. And then we go into another layer deeper on budgeting when we choose to take it down, which is a little bit different process for us.
Yeah. And so I guess just to reiterate that, you're saying doing the budget to get most like the comps that you're comparing to. So for example, if you're using comps that are, have resold at a price that are still 1990s kitchens, you're not going to, like, the budget's going to be built around getting it to that level versus something as a super high end comp. Like, we see this a lot when there's, especially around Spokane, where there's some of these neighborhoods that have older homes right next to new developments. And it's like, the new development might be the same size, but same size houses, but those ones are 2019, they have open floor plans, they have modernized kitchens. It's going to be a very different renovation of your 1970s house that you're, 1970s split level that you're trying to upgrade. It's just not going to be quite the same comparison. And you always have to be realistic of, do you actually need to get to the same level of those brand new build homes? Is that the expectation of the buyer for those comps that you're looking at? And the question is typically not. And that's kind of what takes us down another rabbit hole here of determining what the true level of renovation you should do even is.
It definitely needs to be data driven and market dependent, right? As far as in a softer market, when I say softer market, I mean it's more of a buyer's market. You're going to have to do better rehab because you're competing. In a seller's market, just really it's very, very data driven. Like you mentioned, new construction, new build in a seller's market is always going to sell at a premium because it's new. Nobody's sat on the toilets before. People will pay a premium for that. And so when you're doing your comps,
that's the goal. You have a house where no one's used the toilets before.
Exactly. So, but maybe just now, if you're looking at, hey, what about building a budget for when you take it down? How do I do that? Well, so a lot of times in our business process, if we can do it, which most often we can, so we've negotiated based off of our initial budget, right? Say it's a $35,000, $40,000 initial rehab budget. We're able to get the seller into contract, and then we contact the seller again and say, hey, we just need our contractor to walk through. And that's when you or your contractor can go walk through and look more detailed and get a more detailed budget for you. And the reason why that matters is because you want to have confidence that your initial budget is actually accurate and you don't uncover something that's just crazy. Like, oh my gosh, something you missed, right? The house is falling over. I don't know. Major upgrades need to be done. Also, you want to be able to put your materials package together so that right when that thing closes, you can have your materials package delivered on site and your contractor starting that day. That's the most seamless process if you're going to burr or flip, is like right at closing, seller's gone, you're inside there. And what we do for that is a little bit more of a detailed inspection. And when I say detailed inspection, I mean quantities and measurements for things, right? And so, if we're going to do a kitchen rehab, we're going to walk into the kitchen. We're going to take measurements of the cabinets. So we know if we're going to upgrade that kitchen, we can take those measurements along with photos to our cabinet company, and they're going to order the cabinets and countertops for us. And those will be prepared and ready to go when we need them. Same thing with flooring, doors, trim, anything that's going to get replaced. That's when you're quantifying those. Now you can actually have your exact materials budget. And I always recommend, especially if you're doing these yourself and you have a GC working for you that you maybe aren't as familiar with, like, you order all the materials yourself, put those on site. You don't need to be paying a premium for materials. You can get them delivered for most vendors. So you're going to do that. You're going to count all the lights. For us, we go top to bottom. Generally speaking, on an average flip, we're replacing all light fixtures, all plumbing fixtures, outlets and switches, which a lot of people don't do, but we do. So I'm counting all those quantities, making sure we're dialed in on all that sort of stuff. And we actually have our vendor, all their SKU numbers. So we can just grab all those SKUs, dump them in, and then actually calculate through a more detailed calculator of what our actual materials are going to be costing us, and have those ready to order based on SKU number. We can call up the ProDesk or whatever vendor we're using for those items. And so that's that more detailed, probably a second walkthrough where you have the seller's a little bit more likely because they're like, okay, thank God I'm selling it. Now they're coming in and they're going to just take these measurements with their contractor. They're more likely to be open to that. Sometimes sellers are a little finicky, but this is that one walkthrough where now that they're under contract, they're happy, they've got a close date. You're coming there to just take measurements so you know what you need to do. And then now you have that more detailed budget. But again, that needs to be data driven. Don't go in there and do all this stuff that you don't need to do. So we, like, for example, we have a flip right now. We started last week. It should be finishing up here this week. It's what you'd call a carpet and paint flip. Mm-hmm. The kitchen, it's okay. Cabinets are okay. The comps are okay kitchens. So we're not going to go in there like I'd love to just knock the kitchen out and start over and make this thing HD TV beautiful. I can post on Instagram. People will say, wow, that's amazing. But that's a waste of money because the comps have a ceiling. The comps definitely have a ceiling, and they're telling us to do carpet. They're telling us to do paint. They're telling us to replace anything that's majorly damaged. Mm-hmm. So that's what we're doing. So our budget on that one was really easy. Okay, we know how many square feet of the house we have for paint. We know how many square feet of carpet. We know how many fixtures go in there. We counted all the fixtures, light fixtures, plumbing fixtures, things that we know we're going to replace. That's our budget. Yeah. We're not talking about knocking out bathrooms, replacing bathtubs, because that's when your labor starts going up and up and up and up because you have so much more time in it.
Yeah, and that's the biggest mistake that so many new renovators make is their main influence that they've seen has been on the Instagram, the before and afters, all that sort of stuff. When really, if you're doing this, it's a business, right? I understand that there's a fun aspect of trying to make it look good, but honestly, what's more fun than having a really awesome looking kitchen that you just remodeled is having a $50,000 check that you just made, flipping a house, doing very little work.
Because I mean, it can be a major swing in your profits. Mm-hmm. Honestly, little things add up. That nice, cute backsplash, those new countertops that you didn't have to do, the whole new bathroom tile shower and all that sort of stuff. Like, you don't necessarily need to do a lot of that, especially if you're in that median home price in your market where that's not even what they're calling for. If you want to get into luxury flips, which you see people all over Instagram, that's what they do. That's their niche. Mm-hmm. That's a luxury flip. And they're usually pretty seasoned at that. Yeah. If they're, have a wide following and they're doing a lot of stuff in, say, a major metro like a Seattle or San Francisco, that's what they know what they're doing. They're taking a $500,000 purchase and selling it for $1 million. And so of course it needs a $200,000 budget. Yeah. Your typical median home price, you're not going to need that.
Yeah. And especially in this, in a seller's market, which it still is right now, even though things are starting to shift a little bit. Not everything has to be dialed in. Cause like if you have that more like the picture perfect kitchen, bathroom, whatever, the house will for sure sell faster. It's gonna be more desirable. But when people are buying everything anyway, it doesn't matter nearly as much. And if you can get away doing as little as possible, that's really how you make a lot of your money. And I also think that that's one of the reasons so many people right now that have been flipping over the last number of years are complaining they can't find any opportunities now. Not only are they not searching for their opportunities because they were never in the instant investor program, didn't learn how. They've never. I have to throw it in there.
Plug. It's shameless.
Yeah. But also, they're looking at things thinking they need this huge renovation because it's not what they've done in the past that has like a full kitchen, a full bathroom. Like they don't even understand that they don't have to do that. I mean, we've bought houses and made large amounts of money off of deals that everyone said there's no spread here because the renovation's too big. And we'll go in and we'll be like, I don't know, we did some paint, trim, and flooring, and we flipped it and we made, $50,000. But apparently no one wanted to buy it for a $15,000 wholesale fee because they were thinking that they had to redo the entire house, which realistically is not the case. So
it's not.
Yeah. So ultimately, I guess just to wrap it up, kind of the two ways to approach it, I guess the two steps to it. So the basic wholesale rehab comp, the easiest way to do it, honestly, is to go to collectingkeyspodcast.com/calculator and download our calculator tool. It has like literally drop down menus that let you select whether things are needed or not that you can do based off photos. I mean, we do a lot of those estimates completely virtually because our guy goes out and takes photos for us, or, we have the seller send us photos. After you do that, if you are going to be buying the property yourself, at that point you approach the seller and maybe go walk it with a contractor, take measurements, and get specific costs and estimates on materials. If you're still trying to figure out your materials, look at what similar stuff nearby is like your similar comps, like what they look like. And honestly, I think a good way to do it would be if you took those photos off of Zillow or whatever and just like went to a manufacturer and said, hey, I want this. Like, how can you help me? You know, what would this cost to make it look like?
Yeah. One quick hack I tell people trying to learn this is, just to add to that, is you got a standard bathroom, right? 5x8, whatever the size is. It's got a shower, a tub, a vanity mirror. Just go to the bathroom you live in and look at all that, and then go and buy the fixture, or go to like Home Depot, look at the fixtures that you would need to replace those to upgrade them with. That's your material budget for a bathroom. It's a toilet, it's a vanity, it's a faucet, it's a shower. You can like quickly understand what material costs are.
Yeah.
I mean, very quickly. Then you just have to understand what the labor element is based on what your contractor is going to charge you. If it's going to be a per unit or a time and materials type thing. If it's a time and materials, which could be recommended in certain scenarios, then you just ask them what their hourly wage is. Mm-hmm. $50 an hour. Perfect. I'll allocate 16 hours to this.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, probably thinking that sounds like a lot of work, and I hate to break it to you, but it kind of is. But really, once you have the process figured out, like Dan was saying before, he knows the SKUs and everything, it goes pretty quick. So that's the more detailed one if you're going to buy it, renovate yourself. And then the third key point being that look at what level of renovation you realistically need to do to make the amount of money that you need to make, and to not be over renovating where you're basically just flushing money down the toilet to make a house look good, really for social media or for your own well-being.
And trust me, after you do a dozen or more of these flips, you don't want to go pick out materials. You just want to go get the exact same thing you did last time. Pick it out. Here's your color scheme for this house. Boom, done.
Yeah. And well, that's also why you have so many people that are like, ugh, I hate the house flipper look of like the white cabinets and the white countertop. And it's like, you know why? Because they're institutional investors and they're stuck at freaking kitchens. And they're just like, here you go, contractor. This is the stuff that I want. Go buy it.
Yes.
Just keeps it simple. But yeah, so the three steps there, the easy comp with the calculator, the detail comp with the contractor, and then going and making sure that you're renovating as needed and not as you desire, to get the most money out of it. And ultimately, it's not rocket science, but there is a little bit of practice that goes into it, and you know, some of those tools will help you get it done. So anyway, all right, Dan, well, good explanation. If you guys want to hit us up on socials, you can hit me up at Mike_invest on Instagram. You can find Dan at InvestorManDan. Go ahead and shoot us DMs. We love chatting with people on there. Then if you go to collectingkeyspodcast.com, you can get our 5-step guide subject generating off-market leads. And then if you go to collectingkeyspodcast.com/calculator, you can get the calculator that we talked about in this episode. And then outside of that, if you want to learn to run this business yourself and start making fat checks off of some wholesales, buying discounted properties, having great investment opportunities for yourself and your family, you can go to instantinvestorprogram.com and book a call with one of us, and we will see if you'll be a good fit for our group coaching program. We have, a little squad over there right now with 13, 14 people. And finally, some people are starting to get some good traction. Our guys, Aaron and Heather down in South Carolina, they're really starting to get some good leads. And it's funny watching them go through the whole process of like, we had a seller call in and say this, is this normal? And we're like, oh yeah, you're getting into the trend right now. I love it. But go check out instantinvestorprogram.com and see if you'd be a good fit for that. And besides that, anything else, Dan? We'll send us off.
Yeah, I'll send us off. If you have an over rehab issue, come to me, hit me up, InvestorManDan on Instagram. I will be starting a Rehabbers Anonymous program. It's a 12-step program where I can get you out of over rehabbing your properties and getting straight to profits.
Rehabbers, there you go. No, but for real, if you have rehab questions, hit up Dan. He would be probably happy to give you way too much time for free, just because Dan's that kind of guy. So absolutely, InvestorManDan, go find him on Instagram. All right, thanks everybody. See you next week.
All right, see you guys.
Thanks for listening. Please leave us a review on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. And check us out at collectingkeyspodcast.com for tips and guides on starting your own real estate investment and wholesaling business.